Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Eye on Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eye on Icon. This is the episode where we go around the Icon ecosystem and bring the best of the best on the show to interview them about projects they're working on. And today we have got Daeki from OMM, that is. No, but really it's said OM. And with me as well as Icongrapher. How are you today, Icongrapher?
I'm doing well. I'm excited about the interview.
Excellent. Daeki, don't mean to leave you hanging. How are you? Thank you for coming on the show.
Of course, thank you. Thanks for having me, and really excited to share more about OM.
We're so happy to have you on. There's people just asking questions constantly. In fact, it was probably one of the tweets I put out asking, the community what would they like to hear about was the most responded to tweet I've ever put out. People just ask question after question after question. Luckily, everyone kind of wanted to know the same thing, so we've kind of zoned it into a bunch of questions we're going to ask you today and hopefully get the answers the community have been craving to hear about, because of the excitement. So really excited to have you on. Daeki, let's just kick it off first. Let's in case someone has just picked up this podcast and gone, what's Icon? What is all this? Who are you? Tell us. Give us a quick version of who you are, how you got into crypto.
All right. I haven't done this in a while. So let's see. So I before I joined crypto, I was at a VC fund. So I'm currently living in Silicon Valley, and then obviously, I kind of like learning about new technologies in general. And then VC fund was like a really good fit for that because I was always looking for new technologies and new startups to invest in that were utilizing these new technologies. So I was mostly like covering like kind of the cutting edge technologies. So this included like AI, autonomous vehicle, VR, AR, and obviously blockchain was one of the sectors that I was covering. And then at a certain point, I felt like blockchain was really just like, life-changing technology in general. Like not just a technology revolution, but also like from a socioeconomic point of view, it had a lot of impact to the world. So I figured like I want to kind of jump into the crypto full time. At that point, I was meeting a lot of the folks in the industry, and then one of them was actually Min, the co-founder of Icon Project. And he was just getting started at the time, and like he and I knew because I knew him from his previous startup days, and we connected. And then he wanted to basically have someone join him to kind of build out the ecosystem for Icon, and I thought it was an interesting opportunity for myself as well. So. That's how I joined Icon, and afterwards, basically, Scott and myself set up I6 Station, which was intended as an accelerator initially, but now it's like becoming more of like an incubator of like incubating multiple different projects. Balance being one of them, OM being another one, and Bridge being another one as well. So basically, working on all these different projects that we think are necessary for the Icon ecosystem, and very excited about what we're working here. Yep.
So what I think a lot of people probably know this, but again, in case for people who are newer to the community or maybe haven't followed the project, you just want to give a 10,000 foot overview of what OM is and what it does.
Yeah, no, OM in simple terms, it's a money market, and then I guess even money market sometimes people don't know. So I think the best way to kind of put it is like, if you know like a peer-to-peer lending services like Lending Club and whatnot, I think it's probably most similar. In terms of to understand what it does. So the difference here is it's powered by blockchain, and it's really not just like a peer-to-peer one-to-one, but it's more of like a pool of capital from on the supply side and a pool of capital on the demand side. The interesting thing about OM is that we're trying to have anyone supply and borrow assets, also earn interest and own a share of the protocol. But aside from that, I think what's really interesting is right now there's a lot of DeFi services out there that are catering to the current DeFi crypto natives. But we really wanted to build out a service that can cater to the broader audience. And, like we're all in this to like really have a good impact to the world. And I feel that, basically, like really banking the unbanked, we can do it with some of these DeFi protocols. And we feel that OM along with Bridge is kind of first step towards it.
So can you, and obviously, we have the traditional markets of money markets, which have been around, basically forever. Obviously, we're kind of entering a new era with the decentralized finance and everything like that. What if you can kind of just give a bit of an overview as far as what the pluses of the decentralized version are versus the centralized. I think some people might kind of know off the bat, but just kind of walk through, what the upsides are as far as having a decentralized platform like OMS.
Right. So I think the good part is like let's see, where do I start? So I think because a lot of the DeFi protocols in nature are is transparent, it is quite different from the existing financial infrastructure in that users can have visibility into what's happening. Like, for example, what I mean by that is if a bank is about to, go through a bank run situation, like I wouldn't know as a consumer of the user of the bank. But if you see a DeFi protocol, like a money market protocol about to run into bank run situation, you would know because you can basically check all these data on chain. And I think that's kind of the real merit of a lot of these DeFi in general, the fact that all the data is on chain and like all the risks are on chain. So you as a user can basically assess the risk versus blindly relying on a third party to basically, make you feel comfortable without having much visibility. So I think that's kind of the beauty of the DeFi in general, where like it's basically everything is transparent. And I think with that basically comes a lot of the benefits, right? For example, I think a lot of the existing banks or lending services or money markets in general, like they need a lot of these back end office to make sure, like, these risks are calculated properly, like a lot of these accounts add up, and the compliance thing also makes sense. But because a lot of these things are automated by a smart contract, you basically need a lot less people to manage, similar, I guess, basically purpose. I think a good example I give out to a lot of non-crypto folks in general is like, compare Coinbase to something like, Uniswap or I guess Balance for that matter. Like they have like a similar volume at some point, but Coinbase has thousands of people basically working on the exchange versus like Uniswap, which is like 10 people, and you're basically getting like 100x productivity by using a new technology called blockchain, and that's what we're trying to hope to achieve with OMM on the money market side.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. It is what it enables is exciting. Now, you touched on this, and I thought I was very keen to know how did the team come together. So you said you and Scott founded in the incubator, but how did the rest of your team, or if you could actually say who the teams are working and how you all came together to deliver on this idea?
Right. So I think, let's see, the initial idea came from the fact that, iSix Station as a team has been really looking for applications to be built on Icon for several years at this point. And we've been kind of doing a lot of research, trying out different products on Ethereum, etc. And at some point last year, we came to the conclusion that DeFi, like just because of the nature of what blockchain does, at a high level, it's really a ledger, a trustless ledger, and by having a trusted ledger, what can you do? You can basically transfer value as seamlessly as you can with you do with internet with information. So what does that mean? That means that there can be a lot of the financial infrastructure that can be built and use case that can be built on top of it. So that's where we kind of started. Okay, maybe it makes sense for us to kind of spend a little bit more time on the DeFi sector specifically. And then, we saw a lot of innovations happening on the Ethereum ecosystem, and they're obviously like, years ahead because they've been around for that much longer. And we thought, what are some of the, we think our community can do some really interesting stuff, but what is the basis layer that needs to be built up? And, we felt that there were a few things. One was a DEX, obviously. Another one was like a synthetic market, and which what Balance is covering. And the last one was a money market, and that's what OMM is covering. So after we came to that idea, we basically gathered, like these teams and the teams that we're working with. So working with Parent 19, we're working with Ivory's team, and then also Robbie on the front end side. These are all the teams that we've worked with previously on different occasions, and thought that we kind of did a pretty good job as a team. So we're basically asked them like, are you guys interested in these projects? And kind of told them what we're trying to do, and then these guys were all on board at that point, and that's how we got started.
Great. I love a good origin story. Thank you for that.
So I think one of the things that people have been excited about for its I think its implications for the wider Icon ecosystem, but obviously for OMM as well, is Bridge. So can you kind of explain what Bridge is to a certain extent, how it works, and what how it'll kind of integrate with OMM, and if it'll be available at launch? I guess that's 4 questions in one, but I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah, a lot of questions. So let me know if I don't cover anything specifically, but basically Bridge is a service that we built to enable regular people to access a blockchain service. We felt that the current landscape and current wallet experiences really don't provide that. So we wanted a new wallet experience where it was easy for regular people. And then I guess the one clarification I wanted to make, and this was kind of a common question on OMM Discord, is that Bridge and OMM are just like a separate products. So Bridge, OMM just happens to be one of the first protocol that Bridge is integrated into, but Bridge can be integrated to pretty much any services. So I do expect Bridge to be integrated into more services going forward. So I think I just want to make a clear distinction between Bridge and OMM. And in terms of like with the Bridge itself, I'll probably break it down into a few different components. So I think one component is, people for regular people, it's hard to manage like a pair of a public key and private key. So we wanted to have a service where it's easy for people to use existing kind of framework for managing their own accounts. And basically, we are making that happen on Bridge by working with a team called, they used to be called Formatting, and then now rebranded to Magic, where you can basically have a non-custodial wallet by using an email address. Like email address login is something a lot of people are familiar with their Web2 experience. So that's like one part of the Bridge experience. The other part of the Bridge experience is that, right now to do a fiat on-ramp and off-ramp, it is quite difficult. You need like fiat on-ramp, off-ramp exchanges that are supported on like different countries. And also you need to basically also buy a stable coin, move that around, and then move that back to your wallet, which is quite cumbersome. So we basically wanted to have all that experience built into the wallet. So I think that's the other part of the experience. And obviously, I think on the Ethereum, like it's hard to basically, as a first-time user, like for example, if I want to interact with Uniswap or Aave or any of these DeFi services in general, I also need to not only have like a stable coin there, but I also need to top it out with ETH. So on the Bridge wallet, what we're doing is we're actually topping it out with like a small amount of ICX. So we don't have to actually worry about the transaction fees initially as well. So I think those are kind of the main components that compose what Bridge is.
So that's interesting. So Daeki, just to summarize here, it is essentially the sign-up process through Bridge will create the wallet, etc., for the user, and via email and password, so they don't have to worry about that entire traditional wallet setup. Would that
correct?
Okay, excellent. What is it? Does it have the ability to import connect an existing wallet, or would the Bridge setup always start a new wallet up?
Bridge will always set up a new wallet. I think exporting. I think importing is difficult. Exporting is possible, although it's not easy with the current setup. And I think, in general, basically the Bridge wallet is really catered towards to these non-crypto native folks who want to kind of try out these stuff.
Of course,
not necessary for I think crypto native folks in general. So I think there's some distinction there. Yep.
Yep. No, that's a real good call out. I had not realized that myself, so that was real good insight. So. Okay, so that's where it's twofold, right? So it creates this onboarding ramp for a new user strictly to just sign up rather than dealing with wallets and all that jazz. then what's the
Yep.
next part of it? So part of this is this now part of Bridge, the USDB, the new stable coin that's going to be introduced? Is this part of Bridge? How's that come into the equation?
Right. So, so that is sorry, I must have missed this. So that is also another component of a bridge where, along with just the wallet part, we were going to actually introduce a new stable coin that's backed by fiat, right? So just to avoid confusion, that used to be called USDB. We're actually changing it to other stablecoin USDS now. And can kind of get into more details there. But yes, other component of the bridge is to have a fiat-backed stablecoin, introducing that on the Icon network.
Okay, so and with that, so part of that, I'm keen to understand how this would actually work. So Bridge, and then is it so? Okay, going back, when you set up Bridge, is it a KYC just to set up the wallet, or is that you don't need to be KYC'd or anything like that?
Yeah, so to sign up for a wallet, you don't need to do KYC, but to deposit and withdraw into fiat, you need to do KYC. So I think there are kind of two folds. Like
Yep.
just to use the wallet functionality, you don't need to do KYC, but to basically interact with a fiat-backed stablecoin and then basically have it interact with the fiat money, then you need to go through KYC.
Okay, so let's dive into the transferring from the fiat account to OMM. So essentially your wallet. And you said it's going to be called USDF or S?
S,
S for Sam.
S,
Yep. Okay.
S for Sam. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Cool. So how will that process work exactly? And is it, part of this is how the process work, and is it at the moment just limited to a certain country's bank accounts, etc.?
Yeah, so I'll kind of walk you through from a user experience how that will work, right? So from a user experience on the bridge side, like the way we're thinking for OM is that people come to OM, we'll do marketing, like basically non-crypto person will come into the OM website, and then like they first kind of would need to log in, right? So when they log in, what they're doing is basically they're creating a bridge wallet by signing up with their email address, which a lot of non-crypto folks are familiar with. After that happens, their wallet is created. And then what they can do is when they want to basically deposit stablecoin to start earning interest, they will go through KYC process, and then they can basically fund the account from their bank account either through ACH or wire, and that will basically mint new stablecoins. And with the new stablecoins that are minted on their wallet, they can deposit that on their own protocol to earn interest.
Oh, yeah, that's brilliant. And I know I'm jumping the gun here. Is in terms of what are the fees? Because we've seen certain on-ramp, off-ramp services across other chains, and they look all flashy. But then when you go to use it, it's like, oh, I'm going to charge you this much in fees, etc. And it kind of, throws away the new users from actually exploring the space. How do we fit into the picture there with Bridge?
So fees, unfortunately, something we don't have control over. Like to rely on to interact with the fiat. So I don't exactly know what other fiat on-ramp, off-ramp offers in terms of fees, but there are also fees attached to these process as well. It's just nature of the business. It's not like we are taking any of the fee. It's just like whoever that has license to basically interact with this fiat, they just need to charge these fees.
Yeah.
I need to get back to you on the specific fee side. There is a chart that basically covers the fees for different process for deposit, withdrawal, for ACH and wire as well. Yep.
Okay, so I'm just gonna walk through what you've said. Is some person who just doesn't know anything about crypto but has heard all these awesome, you can get 5%, 8%, unheard of interest rates. They come onto OMM, they're like, okay,
Yep.
Obviously the UI is simple and beautiful, as we know from Balance, and instead of setting up the wallet, they can use Bridge, sign up via email, which anyone and everyone's used to. If you have a PayPal account, you should be able to do this. You walk through it, get the email. Once you're set up, you're like, okay, Now, it should prompt you. You'll probably see some options via Bridge to go connect your bank account to transfer money straight on, and then you follow that UI KYC, and then it just walks you through the process where you can transfer your dollars into crypto dollars, and straight away you can start earning interest based on whatever the rate is on the protocol. Is it as simple as that?
Yes, that is correct.
Boom.
And so obviously they have the USDS via that transaction. What other assets will people be able to lend out at launch on OMM that you guys have planned at this point in time? I assume ICX being one of them, but beyond those two, what else do you guys have planned?
Right. So I think right now we'll probably start with ICX USDS, and then other wrapped version of a USDC, where if some folks have a stable coin on Ethereum network, they can port it over to Icon network and then also lend and borrow. For the stability of the protocol, I think we'll likely start with those initially. But the plan is to basically use this as almost like a hub for interoperability to come, where we basically bring on different assets that don't have money markets right now, and then have this money market OM be kind of the go-to place to lend out some of these protocol assets that are not supported by any money markets right now.
And would that happen? So Orbit Bridge is kind of the main. I think it's the only mechanism for moving wrap tokens over from Ethereum to Icon. Is that the mechanism people would, as far as the wrapped USDC? Is that kind of the main? That would be the mechanism for people to do that at launch. Do I have that correct?
There are actually a few different methods that are being discussed.
Oh, okay.
So I'll say just Orbit is just one method. Yep.
Got it. Okay. And then obviously down the road too, once BTP gets implemented, that's obviously going to be probably the default for very, very quickly and easily and theoretically cheaply transferring things over. So that'll certainly make things very exciting.
Correct. Yep, that's the goal. Like basically a lot of these BTP different protocols that we're integrating BTP with, we're hoping to bring some of those major assets to OM as well. Yep.
And even in cases where maybe they do have down the road, just because a platform already has a lending protocol of some sort, maybe OM's APY is higher at a given time or something like that. So even in cases where there is an existing lending platform, there still might be an incentive for people to move their tokens over to Icon and use OM. So that's certainly encouraging as well.
Yep, I think from a strategy perspective, though, I think I've been monitoring different money markets across different ecosystem. And I think right now there's like a low-hanging fruits in terms of targeting these protocols that are not supported by money markets, because like basically having a money market, what it does is it enables you to basically make your asset more valuable by creating more utility towards it. And I mean, if you look at like current money markets, there's probably about several dozen, I would say a few dozen assets that are currently supported in the money markets in total across several different money market protocols. And basically there's like thousands of tokens assets out there basically that don't have a money market. So I think those are actually going after those are low-hanging fruits for the short term.
So Daeki, I wanted to come back to, and this is something that a lot of people are asking as well. We mentioned it's transferring, sorry to harp on about this, but from bank accounts to, onto the protocol. Now, you mentioned wire transfers. So one of the big questions out there is now, are we strictly talking limited to US dollars, or will it have functionality like me being in Australia? Can I use the on-ramp, off-ramp from AUD and it converts it into US dollars and puts it onto the protocol? Do you know that level of detail yet, if there's possibilities around it?
I'll have to double check. Understanding is that even if you have a non-USD bank, if those banks support USD, you should be able to make those wires. And what they do is they basically do auto conversion in the process. But it may differ case by case on banks, I think.
So it'd be kind of like if I was in, as an American in a foreign country, even though something, say I was in England, even though things were priced in pounds, I could still use my debit card or credit card and pay normally. And then just on the back end, I would get, instead of getting charge in dollars, it would charge in pounds, but the bank would automatically convert it. That's
Uh,
what the experience I've had. So I
I
think
think
that
as
would
well.
be
Like for example, like if you're like in UK, for example, you can probably send wires from UK to US bank, and like it's automatically converts into USD, and then the backend basically, right?
So I guess then that actually will answer this question. Will answer that. For example, credit cards slash debit cards. Is it a bank account, or can you actually use your debit cards that are connected to bank accounts? Because usually then they automatically do conversion fees, etc., etc.
Right. So debit card, credit card, I think is something we're considering.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be supported initially.
Okay.
And I think in general, the fees on credit card, debit card is also a lot higher
Hmm.
than
right.
ACH and wire transfer. So probably not, like, I think they take almost 4 to 5% for most crypto transactions, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's
If
very
you look
high.
at any purchase of crypto. So I think it's probably least preferred route in terms of because there's just so much cut that's being taken out.
No, no, that's great. Thank you, Daeki. Appreciate that. I know, again, it's a big topic for everyone because a lot of people are excited about this component to get your money in and out and earn this high interest without the thing of going through an exchange and then routing it and etc. And to your other point, it's interesting how you mentioned other money markets. I was just the other day, due to Aave launching on the Polygon network, I was like, let me check it out. Let's see the speed and etc. And I went to Aave. I haven't used it in a long time, and it's the biggest money market out there, right, at the moment. And
Yep.
there's just so much information thrown at you in every screen. And it's meant to be the simplest of them all. Like, I was completely overwhelmed by what the information is trying to tell me. All I wanted to know was what interest rate I'm going to get. Yes, I could get that, but as soon as I went into other screens, it started just throwing me graphs and random stuff that may not be random, might actually be useful information, but me, the average user, it was just very overwhelming. So, really looking forward to having tested OMM a while back. After this experience, I really appreciated the OMM experience because none of that. It was literally 2 clicks. I knew exactly what was going on. All the complication was removed. So hopefully this is where it's still looking. Based on after a few months, it's still as simple as it was earlier. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think users will be very pleased.
Yep. That's what we look forward to as well.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so look, I feel we've covered that. You've given really good insights on the bridge, kind of answered all the roundabout questions everyone's thrown at us. So let's talk about the token of the protocol. What are some of the things it enables? Why do I want this token?
Right. So simple answer is the governance power, obviously. So I think to me, I always separate different governance protocol tokens in general as well, and um, the value that it will bring in general, I think, is still a lot of it is experiment at this point. I would like to say, but to me, uh, a lot of these protocols eventually will disrupt existing industries and challenge existing companies. And to me, a lot of these protocol structure, DAO structure, are actually a new form of companies, right? So it's not quite you're owning like necessarily like shares of a company, but these portal tokens give you governance rights to the protocol. And if you think they're kind of new form of a company, and if you think that protocol will actually become big, I think owning that tokens which has governance power on the protocol can be meaningful. And that's obviously depending on whether you believe these governance power is meaningful or not, or whether you think these protocols will become successful or not. But I think to me, in simple sense, that's what it is about. Going specifically into the utility of the tokens from the governance power, what it can do is, there will be obviously a DAO fund, right? So through a DAO fund, they can choose what to do with a DAO fund. By staking OM tokens, what we're thinking is basically the fees that the OM protocol collects. Basically, it can be used to purchase OM tokens from the market and basically distribute it to the OM stakers, for example. And then OM stakers can also decide where the stake ISIC should be delegated towards to. So if you want to basically have, like kind of move the needles in the governance side on the Icon ecosystem, I mean, that's something also you can do with OM tokens. And then ideally later down the road, I mean, hopefully with the governance, if OM can be used as the collateral on the OM market as well, right? I think we've seen that already happen with Compound and Aave. So that's something we're hoping to have at some point as well.
Cool. So adding tokens, etc. So I'll just throw something out there since it's the oldest one. So TAP, for example, a proposal could be put through, and OM holders could vote to see if we get that token added as you put it up as collateral in the money markets, etc. Those kinds of decisions as well will go via the governance token.
Correct. And as much as I'm excited to have tap tokens on our market, I think, and I think someone actually recently asked, will OM token be listed on OM market on the first day? As much as I want these to happen, I think there has been a lot of economic exploits that happen because of basically listing tokens that are not somewhat stabilized in terms of price and liquidity. That's, I think, a big part of the modern market. If you look at a lot of exploits that happen across the Ethereum ecosystem and Binance ecosystem, a lot of it happens because some of these DeFi protocols have onboarded assets that are not yet appropriate for to be listed on these markets. So I just want to kind of put out a caution out there because for example, as a result of having TAP on OM market, for example, and then let's say someone was borrowing, USDS by collateralizing TAP tokens, but then price is going to be basically dictated by the price on the DEX. And if there isn't enough volume on the DEX, or if the market cap of the TAP is basically can be manipulative by a whale, like someone can basically immediately buy up TAP tokens and then basically borrow a lot of the assets, and then they can dump TAP actually. So that actually happened to a protocol called Venus on Binance ecosystem, where someone basically, a whale, bought like hundreds of millions of Venus tokens, bought a bunch of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then basically dumped Venus back, and then didn't end up paying Bitcoin, Ethereum back. So it's something that you have to be really careful about in terms of when you're adding a new asset to the OM protocol. And that's why we're also starting with 3 specifically, 1 ICX, and then 2 stablecoin pools, because we want to make sure everything is done on a step-by-step basis.
One of the things I want to make sure gets explained and highlighted is just what is determining what the interest rate is, both for if you're lending out one of those stable coins, and at this other side of things, if you're borrowing one of those stable coins, how are those rates determined? Do they float, or are they static? If you just kind of want to go into it a little bit, because I think obviously that's an important component of things.
Yeah, so it's a variable interest rates. So it just has variable interest rates, and it's most purely based on the supply and demand side of things, basically. So if there's more demand for stablecoin, obviously the borrowing interest rate is going to get higher. If there's less demand for stablecoin, the interest rate will go lower. And then, based on the borrowing interest rate, the supply interest rate will also be dictated as well.
And if I say it's at 3% and I want to borrow USDS,
Mm-hmm.
when I borrow it, do I get locked in at the 3%? And so until the end of my loan, I'm only paying 3%, or is it if I started at 3%, but then if it fluctuates up to 4%, am I stuck paying that 4%? Or I guess where does it lock in or not?
It doesn't.
Okay.
It would change consistently based on the demand and
supply. Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think if you want a fixed, and I get asked this question a lot as well. I think if you want a fixed interest rate, you'd probably be better off using something like Balanced, which has really no interest rate, but I guess origination fee. But if you are borrowing for a shorter term, you can the interest rate can vary from 4 to whatever percent, but because it's going to be a shorter term, like it's not that meaningful in the end.
Right.
So
right.
I think for a shorter term, I think money own market makes a lot more sense. I think for a longer term borrow, I think balances make more sense.
I
And
think. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I can go for.
well, and then just the mechanism. So say I borrow 100 ICX. What's the mechanism for actually being charged that interest? Do I owe back 104 or what exact to close out the loan, or say it was 4% over a year? Do I owe after a year, do I owe 104, or does it work a little differently than that?
Sorry, I didn't quite get the question. Can you
So
maybe rephrase it? Yeah.
how I guess what's the exact mechanism for how the interest gets charged? Does it when you take out the loan, do you end up having to, when you ultimately pay it back, do you have to pay back a little bit more in order to cover that interest, or how exactly do you get charged that when you take out a loan?
Yeah, so when you take out a loan, basically, your loan balance goes up real time, basically, based on the borrowing interest rates.
Got it.
And then when you're paying back, you just have to pay back the total loan balance that you're seeing
in order to close out that
Correct.
loan. Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
But you can still just close out partially as well. Yeah, so it really depends. I think that the good part is like it's pretty flexible. Like, you can close it whenever you want. You can close it partially if you want, etc. Yep.
I think one thing, after reflecting on some of the conversations, one thing all the listeners need to realize, and I know this is what will happen, right? Everyone is excited about earning interest on their stablecoin. Yeah, so we'll see this influx of stablecoin getting put into the protocol. Obviously, that interest comes from people who actually borrow on the other side and are paying extra to borrow. So that's why it's always variable, right? It's supply and demand. So keeping that in mind. But what also everyone needs to realize as well is that's why at the start it may be a little lower initially, but this is why the OMM token exists, and it's not pre-mined. It's distributed every day, just like balance is being. So people will actually try to mine the OMM token by depositing collateral and taking out a loan and kind of trying to be on both sides of the fence. And this itself will create that initial spur of interest getting paid to people who don't want to take the risk of taking out a loan, just want to deposit some funds and earn interest. But then as we get more users, the kind of mining aspect starts to fade away and actual real interest is generated because people think, you know what, I want to lock my I'm going to use TAP in this example. I want to hold my stash of TAP and I want to lock it up and take a little bit of a loan and run out to an exchange and buy some new Safe Moon project, etc. But you get the gist of what I'm trying to paint here, and hopefully it becomes clear to everyone as well. Is that a good way of looking at it, Daeki? Just making sure.
Yep, I think you're on point. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, look, I think Icongrapher, have you got any other questions you wanted to throw? Some surprise stuff at Daeki?
No, I want to pull one. I think some of the Twitter questions we kind of covered already. I think there's one big question that we want to ask, but we'll probably save that toward the end. But obviously we have balance now, and with OMM. I think some of the ways they can complement each other might be kind of obvious, but in the way that people might be able to utilize the two platforms, kind of, they talk about the DeFi Legos, how things start to fit together as blocks. How will the two platforms kind of complement each other, and what I think there's probably 1,000 different ways that they could you could utilize and leverage each. But if you just kind of want to give a general sense of how they can work together and maybe some specific examples of where there could be a lot of value derived from that partnership or complementary relationship.
Right. So I think, to be honest, I think there is quite a bit of synergies to be made between Balance and OMM. But what I'm really excited about is more protocols that are coming up that will be utilizing both Balance and OMM. I think there is honestly a lot more bigger fishes to fry over there. I think a good example is something like Optimus, where it's going to be basically, utilizing both Balance and OMM at like a layer on top of these Lego sticks. Regarding specifically the Balance and OMM, What I envision later down the road is, obviously when balance tokens become more stable, hopefully balance tokens can be voted in through governance to be used as collateral. I mean, BNUSD for that matter also can be voted in at later point. And then obviously balance has its own DEX. So hoping that maybe at some point, some of these liquidity pools of own pools on the balance DEX can basically be, utilizing balance protocol as well.
Yeah, that's great. No, excited about that. We're keen to get Optimus. If anyone from there is listening, please get in touch with us. We want to have you on the show. Should we ask the question, Icongrapher? Is it that time?
Yeah,
I feel
might as well. Might
Yeah.
as well.
Okay, so Daeki, everyone wants to know how close are we to a launch? Are we close to giving out some dates or timeframes?
So I've been staying on Discord Q2ish, and then maybe I can just kind of share what's a bit more about what has been going on. So at a protocol level, OM is ready to go live. We'll be releasing a testnet version this week. And it's basically just a matter of like flipping a switch on and off at this point to do it on the mainnet. The part where it's been lagging a little bit was on the bridge side, where well, bridge team was working with a trust called Prime Trust to basically build a fiat peg stablecoin on the Icon network. But because they were so bombarded with a lot of the existing clients, basically they couldn't handle a new client, and basically everything was built for Bridge for a while as well, but they just didn't give okay sign to the Bridge team to basically launch Bridge stablecoin on the Icon network. So that has basically pushed back OM launch a little bit, to be frank. And we've found a new partner called Stably, so we're going to work with them to sign the contract, and that's why the new stablecoin is going to be called USDS instead of the existing USDB we were thinking of. But hopefully, when that's all done, like we should be ready to go. The reason we didn't launch OM without Bridge was that we wanted this experience. Like the OM's goal was always to basically have regular people be able to access the money market, and we felt that launching OM without the Bridge component just didn't make any sense, especially since we're going to do like a lot of the mining from day one. So that's where things are. In terms of timeline, we're still pushing hard for Q2. We'll see where that goes, but we're expecting Q2ish at this point. Yep.
That's great, Daeki. Really appreciate you sharing that with us, and I think the community will appreciate that as well, because everyone knew it was close, but didn't know when and couldn't understand why we couldn't get news on that front. So it's very good to know that it's actually our side of the stuff is done. It's unfortunately a falling through of a partner deliverable that has caused a bit of havoc in the background for you guys to scramble and get things back on track. So awesome work getting a new partner, and hopefully things transition quickly. And all that aside, though, really appreciate that. That's really good insights.
Just quick, you meant, I think by the time people, you mentioned the testnet going up this week. By the time I think people listening to this, it should be live. Is it something where people can kind of play around with it and just get a sense of the protocol, or is that something more internal for you guys to just work on some further testing?
No, we'll definitely share it with the community. Unfortunately, the stablecoin part won't be done because that's where it needs to be developed. But the protocol itself should be ready to be tested, including the voting side and whatnot. So, yep, we're pretty excited about that. Yep.
So actually, this is great. I had this question on my mind. So, with balance, for example, the voting aspect and stuff is coming soon. Always part of the plan. They'll deliver that a couple of months later. So with OM, is that shipping on day one?
Correct.
Brilliant. That was a long question to a quick answer. Great. Excellent. No, Daeki, we really appreciate you coming on the show. You have answered all of our questions and shed some light to certain things the community have been asking, so everyone will be grateful. Once again, thank you for coming on the show. We hope to have you on again soon. Icongrapher, have you got any closing words?
Nope. I think I think hopefully that answered a lot of outstanding questions, fill in some information gaps, educated about the platform, and I think people, ideally, people get even more excited now, especially knowing that the launch is coming around the corner.
Excellent. Thank you, Daeki, again. Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
Take care.
See ya.